In this video I'm going to take you around the former concentration camp at Ravensbrück. And what I've got in front of me right now, that's the administration building, the former administration building. And normally it was that building which got built first. And it's in just about all concentration camps, that building has actually survived. So why? Because it's made of brick and it was solidly built. It's not always the first one we built. For example, in Stutthof it was built, if I remember rightly, in 1941, whereas there was wooden barracks went up by the autumn of 1939. But anyway, so, and coming to behind me here, this is the SS housing. So this is where the guards were housed, and this estate is still in use. There's people living in it. In some buildings there's exhibitions related to the camp, and so the fact that it survived is due to the fact that this was occupied by the Red Army and then the Russian Army until 1994. And so that's how they survived. There's 4 buildings which were made, were called the leader buildings. And up here we have, for example, that is the house where the commandant lived with his wife and family. And there's 4 houses like that. This one here, you've seen in a different film, I'll give a real estate tour of it. And there's other houses along there. So I read I was 10 years old, the account by Odette Sanson, who was a British agent. She was captured in France, spent nearly 2 years in Fresnes prison in Paris. She was sent to Karlsruhe, and then she ended up here. And she described, as she was coming here in July of 1944, how the guards didn't even look up when the prisoners were coming. So they got off the train at Fürstenberg station, I presume, and then they walked here from Fürstenberg station, and the guards are out sunning themselves. So on the right we've got the garages for the camp. Look at the garage building, is in excellent condition, and it's now used for housing materials, educational materials, offices, and some exhibitions. And here, this building was multi-purpose, but part of it had the water supply came from here, and all of this was built around 1939. So now this in here, it's not in such good condition any longer. Now when this was captured on the 30th of April 1945, the day that Hitler committed suicide, about 120 kilometers to the south or thereabouts, all the barracks were still here, as it was, for example, in Birkenau, the captured the camp. Everything was there, but it was the Soviets here that got rid of the barracks. Now in some places, for example at Stutthof, there was a very hard winter, 45-46, so locals broke up the barracks, and they took the wood to keep them warm while they were cooking, etc. And here it was the Soviets who just sort of messed everything up. But it needs to be pointed out and borne in mind that whereas the war was in everybody's mind in 1945, recording what happened wasn't. But we can see here where the barracks were, because the land goes down a bit, but this is largely done to recent work when they found out where the barracks themselves were. Now this was a women's concentration camp. There was a male section here, but I was going through the death books here, and nearly all of the dead are female. The guards, to a large extent, were female, and the guards were recruited either locally or they could be conscripted. And in the case of conscripts, it was that they're part of their labour duty now one, for example, a lawyer, she was conscripted to come here, sent messages back to her parents, she didn't want to be here at all, and as a result, when she was arrested after the war, her mail was shown, and this was taken as a factor in her defence. Having said that, there were other people who volunteered knowing it was a concentration camp. Now the advertisements were put in the press, didn't say it was an advertisement, didn't say it was a concentration camp. They said they were needed in camps or something along those lines. I mean, the fact that they were coming to a concentration camp wasn't known until they actually turned up. Having said that, some guards did actually say they didn't want to stay, having seen it, and they could actually, there are cases where they were allowed to go home, they had to pay for their own train fare, but they were allowed to actually return home. Now, I'll walk down here a little bit, but you can see there's not a huge amount to be seen. Here, we can see one of the guard towers is there. But hopefully this gives you an idea of the huge amount of space that this takes up. Now, I was here first time, in fact it's only the second time here, I was here the first time in the summer of 95, so 28 years ago. And then what I recall is that as we drove in, there was a Soviet shop for soldiers, but it was smashed up, and the glass was broken, all the rest of it wasn't smashed up because it had been looted or something. I think this was just what happens when things get abandoned. And then we came in here. Now, where that shop was, or even the base for that matter, when I drove in just now, I couldn't see anything. Now, to the right, so we've got the prison block, also known as the bunker, down there, and Odette Sanson was kept in that, and she recalls in her memoirs the fact that the crematorium was right next to it, so you can see where the crematorium was. And also there were prisoners who were shot next to the crematorium, and she actually mentions that. Now, the sick bay huts were in this area here, and in the conditions they had to work in, many of the prisoners would get sick very, very quickly. Prisoners here were used for slave labour in I think Siemens had a plant here, for example, and other companies as well. Things related to the war. And you can see the high wall as well down here. So we'll have a look at that as well. I think the fact that this has been left as it is in this condition is appropriate, and the exhibition inside is really comprehensive, and it's free. I mean, I could easily spend 2 or 3 days here. It's really very good. I'd have to say, of the camps in Germany on the exhibition, this one's probably the best that I've seen. I mean, they're all good though. In Germany, remembering what the Nazis did is taken really, really seriously. Now, the bunker building is open, and sorry, it is during the day, it isn't now because it's closed. In fact, I got kicked out of one of the rooms because it closes at 6, but the rest closes at 8. But this here in front now, this is the building called the bunker, the prison of the camp. And prisoners, when they came here, they could be admitted to the camp and then end up in one of these barracks, or they could be put in this building here. Depends what they were accused of. In fact, remand prisoners could even find their way into this building here. There you can see the wall from the outside with the barbed wire on the top. And let's come through here. And if they were kept in the cells here, there were various degrees of how they were kept. For example, they might be in there for 3 days. They could even get 42 days. They might be on bread and water every day. They might be on full rations once every 4 days. That's to say, 1 day in 4 they get full rations, and the other 3 days they get nothing. They could be in a cell with heating. For example, Odette Sanson, she spoke about how in the summer of 1944 the heating was on full blast, and when the commandant asked her if she had any complaints, she said yes she does. And then Fritz Suren, the commandant, said the reason for that is because it was ordered by the Gestapo, because the Americans and British had liberated, or had occupied, he probably said, the area where she'd been working in the French resistance. And she said, well, tell the Gestapo, monsieur, that I find their behaviour very droll. So this is the bunker block from this side. You can see the bars on the windows. And prisoners, it would appear, were executed here, in this place here. They were executed by a shot at the back of the neck. Indeed, that's actually said here in this stone memorial, which dates to, I think, DDR times. So here were hundreds of women and girls killed by the SS by a shot in the back of the neck. Well, murdered. And this building here was the crematorium. Now, in most camps, they actually did that. Was to actually the murders actually either took place in the crematorium or next to it. So that's handy for getting rid of the body. Now, in 1944, this building, a provisional gas chamber, was actually built on it, and it was probably half of the crematorium was used for murdering people by gas. This probably wasn't used very often, if at all. I mean, there was other places where they tried this out. For example, first in Auschwitz I, people were actually in one of the cells. They were in the bunker there. They tested it out and used it a few times on Soviet POWs. So I suspect it's probably the right-hand side here was used for as a gas chamber. Now the area here, this has been sort of concreted off because large amounts of ashes were found here in recent times. This is in the last 20 years. So the ashes were just dumped here from the crematorium, which is inside. To get the crematorium to work, they'd need something to actually burn it, such as if you take Auschwitz, there was huge amounts of coal going into it, and in many of the maps or the diagrams of Auschwitz, which you'll see a little hut next to the gas chamber number 3, crematorium 3 at Auschwitz-Birkenau, as being a place which was a coal store. It wasn't a coal store, that was a place that was used for smashing up bones. Coal came in from 3 mines, and after 1944 it could even actually come into the camp itself on trains. On this wall we've got the nations where the prisoners actually came from, and notice here from the one for the United Kingdom the poppies have been put up there, and the sign has been put up as well. So there was a British agent who were actually killed here. Carve Her Name with Pride, that film, actually, I think I haven't seen the whole film, but I think at the end it shows a scene which is meant to be here in Ravensbrück. And so there we have a list of countries from which victims come, and so we'll have a look at the other one with the flowers on. So that's Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Austria, Poland with the flowers on. In many of the camps, the number one, maybe the number one amount of victims was the Soviet Union, but number 2 is often Poland, and then 3rd is usually Germany, as a rule, not always. And here we have a Soviet memorial, but then we have this lake here, the Havel, and it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it looks really nice. And this whole area is Lake District, and so it looks totally out of place. This part here, I suspect, was built in Soviet times. Now, we do have a number of photographs from the staff showing them on their days out and things of that nature. There are no photographs of prisoners taken by the staff, and indeed there's very few showing any camp showing prisoners as well. This was totally forbidden. That is a quick walk around, because the parts of the camp over there, over that direction, which were built later, which I didn't walk around. Yeah, have a look at this here. This statue dates to 59 I think, sorry, and it's called the Burdened Woman. And there's, so I'll show you the plinth at the moment. When we get round here, we'll get a better look. No, it's quite evocative, I think. So, the burdened woman, yes, that such a lady, she's carrying somebody else who's dying, but she doesn't want to give the other person up. Although holding the other person like that, hasn't got a very good grip on the other person at all. So maybe that's also meant to indicate that the dying person is really on her very last legs. People in the town, they saw people coming in and out all the time, but they didn't know what was going on. I read an account of one person actually witnessed it. At the beginning, yeah, you noticed people coming in and out, then you didn't. And she said, well, they were enemies of the state, weren't they? There was something they didn't like about Nazi Germany, which was the reason why they were being brought here. in time I might do some individual accounts of people who were here, so the staff. I've actually already written one, which some things I've filmed today will be added to. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. So I upload every Friday at 2000 hours, and sometimes I upload at other times as well. So I'm filming, doing things like this in Germany and Poland mainly, done a bit in the UK, done a bit in Italy, and matter of fact I've done some in Russia as well, and a bit in Ukraine recently. I also do documentary type videos as well, so that might be of interest. And now I'm going to walk back to my vehicle, which is parked out here, and then I'm going to drive on to my next destination. So now we're back in the SS area of the camp. In fact, when we walked out past the crematorium, we're back in the SS area of the camp, and gives you another look at the administration building. If you're in the area, I strongly suggest a visit. And there's other places as well. Today I went to a place called Hohenlychen, which was where Himmler was hiding effectively when he was supposed to be controlling armies in 1945. And that's the place where he tried to do a deal behind Hitler's back with Count Bernadotte of Sweden. Then from there I went to a place called Stolpsee, which is a lake. I mean, this is all actually it's even in walking distance, but if you've got a couple of hours to spare, but easily cycling distance. And at Stolpsee, what interested me is the stories of gold and platinum, which allegedly were flung into the lake by Hermann Goering in April 1945 as he left his home at Karenhal, which isn't all that far from here either, but not now in cycling range. And so anyway, there's a video coming up on that one. And then I came here and didn't spend as long as I'd like to have done, but I've got to be in Dusseldorf. That's where I'm heading to, and as far as Dusseldorf's concerned, that's the day job, and that's what pays for this. So I've got to be on my way there. So there you see, there's my vehicle here. Thanks very much for being with me, and all the best from me at Ravensbrück. And there's the sign for the memorial. Bye for now.